Disneyland, plus Michael Jackson, plus Star Wars, plus prestige Oscar winners in the biggest, most expensive music video ever made to date, in 3D. I mean, what's not to love? Captain EO is a wondrously cheesy 17-minute sci-fi epic, dreamed up by Disney Imagineers Francis Ford Coppola, Michael Jackson, and George Lucas as an Epcot and Disneyland attraction back in 1986. And the thing just screams the 1980s. Neon costumes, 3D, synth-funk, space opera, silly optimistic premises, and that's kind of why I love it. Michael Jackson was obviously massive in the development of music videos. He was the first black artist featured prominently on MTV with Billie Jean and Beat It. Thriller turned the music video into a long-form miniature film and burned its dance moves into the cultural landscape. Jackson ran with this idea of long music videos. The gigantic Moonwalker turned Speed Demon and, more importantly, Smooth Criminal into a sprawling, self-indulgent full-length film. In a super fun video game, Bad by Martin Scorsese with Wesley Snipes, Remember the Time with Iman and Eddie Murphy, Black or White pushed CGI limits, and was the 90s pop rock equivalent of We're Not Gonna Take It, a rebel anthem without teeth, but still loads of fun. And then Ghosts, co-written with Stephen King, because why not, and directed by Stan Winston, you know, the California Raisins guy. And finally, You Rock My World with Chris Tucker and Marlon Brando. Jackson blurred the lines between music video and short subject, and despite its silliness, Captain EO's may be the best of the bunch. Captain EO is very Saturday morning cartoons-like. The good guys,
a ragtag band, led by the infamous Captain EO,
are sent on one last mission.
Listen, the command considers us a bunch of losers. But we're gonna do it right this time because we're the best. We don't, we'll be drummed out of the Corps.
There's a comedy elephant, conjoined twins, an uptight droid and his cute companion, an even cuter bass-playing butterfly hamster thing, and of course, yes, there were lots of plush toys. And their leader is the incomparable Michael Jackson, back before his fall from public grace and legal woes. I remember the screams of teenage girls when he ascended on stage in the first scene. He is quite winsome here. So this bunch of misfits is sent to a garbage planet to deliver a gift to the planet's supreme leader. They're ordered not to engage in combat, which of course they engage in immediately, and they crash land into enemy territory. Good news, they're taken directly to the supreme leader. Bad news,
100 years of torture in my deepest dungeon.
Captain EO accepts the punishments, but not before he can deliver the gift.
Let me see this gift!
Not only see, Your Highness, but hear.
And finally, the film shifts into full-on MTV mode. His crew might be terrible at piloting a starship, but they make a pretty funky pop band. The Supreme Leader's goons are transformed, then her whip warrior robots are, and finally the Supreme Leader herself, who turns out to have just as great as fashion sense as a middle-aged human as she did as an H.R. Geiger-inspired witch queen.
You think me beautiful?
Captain EO and his team leave triumphant with another great Jackson song. This one was on his album Bad, and played in the theater's exit area, which was also the exit for Space Mountain, the Starcade, and most importantly the Tomorrowland bathrooms, so you're pretty much guaranteed to be humming it all day. Obviously, Michael Jackson and Anjelica Huston are front and center in EO, both camping it up. The offbeat comedian Dick Shawn, who among other things was Hitler in The Producers, plays EO's uptight boss. Tony Cox from Friday and Bad Santa and a million other films clowns it up as Hooter. Yes, his name is Hooter. One half of Idie and Odie is Debbie Lee Carrington, the machine-gun-toting prostitute from Total Recall. And best of all, legendary breakdancers Poppin' Taco and Poppin' Pete play the Whip Warriors. Poppin' Taco, aka Bruno Falcone, taught Michael Jackson the 45-degree lean for the Smooth Criminal video. Poppin' Pete also worked with Jackson for decades. Both were in the Breakin' movies, Poppin' Pete's group The Electric Boogaloos, giving the second film its legendary subtitle. I'll dispense with the weak spots first. 3D often pushes filmmakers into indulging in silliness, from the paddleball salesman in House of Wax to Brendan Fraser brushing his teeth in Journey to the Center of the Earth. In this case, you've got spears and snouts getting thrust into your face, but some of the shots actually really work. The trench run scene is really effective and made me think at the time that Star Wars would have been even cooler in 3D. But then there's shots like the gate dropping and EO floating over the crowd that are just disorienting. Temptation wouldn't be temptation if people didn't give into it once in a while. What does work are those cameos. Obviously, the makeup and special effects work, and choreography and charisma and art design make this a fun film. But I have to say, if Captain EO was in the Oscar contenders, for your consideration, I'd offer you Anjelica Huston and Tony Cox.
Hooter, I'm disguising myself. Gotta have a disguise. the others into trash can.
See you later, trash can!
The YouTube channel Defunctland, in their excellent Captain EO history video, points out the multiple Star Wars similarities in the first half of this film. Whether or not Lucas would have really allowed EO to be counted as Star Wars at the time, it does feel like the sillier parts of Star Wars. The droids and Ewok cartoons, Lego Star Wars, and Heaven Help Us, the Holiday Special, which itself was a chain of music videos. Really terrible music videos.
Oh, yes. I can feel my creation.
But it has a group of rebels, an uptight droid and his cute, quiet sidekick, a planet with only one ecosystem, and a convenient crash landing next to exactly what the rebels are looking for. So, yeah, pretty Star Wars. Any deep analysis of this film would be time ill spent, since it largely feels like kids playing with their action figures. And honestly, that would be awesome, to make big-budget movies based on kids' playtime, like those photoshopped images that people do of their kids' drawings brought to life. I digress. The movie's themes are pretty basic. Often people are beautiful inside, and they just need love to unlock that. Scrappy David versus intimidating Goliath. There are ways to win conflict besides violence, all of which could be a painted wooden sign from Etsy. As I mentioned before, Captain EO looks like a time capsule from the 80s, which gives it a lot of charm, but also makes its demise of the Disney parks inevitable. In its defense, it had replaced the truly dreadful Magic Journeys, and was replaced in turn by the vanilla Honey, I Shrunk the Audience. When Jackson suddenly died at age 50, Disney cashed in by putting EO back in the Magic Eye theaters. In the, quote, Captain EO tribute, as they called it, there was a hilarious attempt to use the Honey, I Shrunk the Audience 4D effects to have the entire theater stomp, a sort of forced dance-along. Dumb as it was, I was happy to see the movie return, and I caught it many times during its second run. Sometimes there's a movie that just makes you happy. For me, Captain EO is one of those films. It's a time capsule, perhaps less serious than Fast Times at Ridgemont High, and a morality tale about as deep as the stitching on your sofa pillows. But it's 17 minutes of fun that I never regret rewatching, and the King of Pop is at his absolute best.